in my family, in this podcast, whatever, I have this potential to realize who I really am, which is more like the king at the end of the series than the strider at the beginning, who's just fending off the boundaries of, he's just in the gritty fight, and he's dirty, and he's kind of greasy and stuff, but it's almost like he doesn't realize the potential inside of him. And then as he goes along this journey, as he's compelled along this journey, him taking the responsibility that he does one step at a time draws out of him the most kingly and the most competence that he could have ever reached. And I think it's totally appropriate that he also gets the woman he always desired at the end of that too. But yeah, like there's something about that story, and I've always related Aragorn with Jesus, not just because he kind of looks similar, though maybe that's exactly why. Maybe that's all there is to it. But there's something about like I know I'm going on long about Aragorn, but I remember reading there's a verse in the Bible that basically says Jesus said such and such, and he said it with such authority that everybody was amazed. And I just thought, I might have even sent this in a message to you. I just thought, like, the Jesus who's painted in most people's minds is so much more feminine than that man 2,000 years ago who spoke with such authority that people were amazed. And I just thought, that sounds more like Aragorn. That sounds like Aragorn, like slaying people, and people looking at his competence, and people looking at his authority and just being in bewilderment. And I've just thought, the real Jesus was probably a lot more like Aragorn, and so much of the picture of Jesus in the West is not like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up, and I agree with you. I think the hard thing is to, take the sword out of Aragorn's hand, because that's what you have to do in order to form him into the real Jesus. But there's something about Jesus too, where it's like he fought just as hard as in my opinion, as any man that's ever actually fought in a battle. He was fighting for something, but he did it mostly peacefully, outside of a couple things like clearing out the temple with a whip and and that kind of thing. But he's the one who's telling Peter to put the sword away, right? And he's still, even in that moment, when in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter's like, all right, here we go, violence.
I hear what you're saying.
And Jesus is like, no, like we're putting that ear back on there.
That's interesting, because I feel like this is something I could have said to myself a while ago too. But the Jesus, the man, I wonder if this is something I've just been pondering. And so this is my response now is, I wonder if some of that, like, heavy leaning on the peace and stuff was because of what had to happen in his physical life, because Jesus, as represented in the whole Bible, is not that way at all. Like, he is not peaceful. He is the Jesus of Revelation is not putting his ear on anybody's, his hand on anybody's ear and healing them. Like, he is judgment. And so I totally, it's almost this conundrum of justice and mercy, but, or even judgment and mercy. But Carl Jung said something, I don't know why or how he kind of phrased this in full. All I know is that Carl Jung thought that, that revelation was necessary to the Bible because it painted a more accurate picture of the real ideal being more aggressive. And it painted it was necessary because we didn't want just the peaceful Jesus. And, it's Carl Jung. He's pretty like way out there. Yeah. But I feel like that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like there is this strength and this judgment about Jesus. And I wonder if some of that, if some of the things that occurred have been taken slightly too far in context even to the point of like pacifism and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which the real Jesus, the reason he did some of those things, maybe it was because he said all the time, these things need to happen for me to end up dying on the cross, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because he understood that was going to happen.